the cloud swallowed him whole, and the men standing on that hillside, dust on their sandals, sweat on their brows, just stood there, mouths open, eyes fixed on empty sky. The person they had followed for 3 years, the one who had died and come back, was gone. Not dead this time, just gone. And in that silence, 2 figures in white appeared beside them and asked the strangest question. Why are you staring at the sky? That question changed everything, not because it gave an answer, but because it forced a pivot. Stop looking up. Start moving forward. What happened on that hill outside Jerusalem was not a farewell. It was a launch sequence, and the shockwave it sent through history is still rippling today. But to understand what really happened in that moment, we have to go back. 40 days back, to a man walking out of his own tomb. For 40 days after the resurrection, Jesus stayed. He ate with his followers. He taught them. He answered questions. He showed up in locked rooms, on dusty roads, beside cooking fires on the beach. And the number 40 was no accident. In Jewish memory, 40 was loaded. Moses spent 40 days on the mountain with God, twice. Israel wandered 40 years in the wilderness. The Great Flood lasted 40 days. Purification laws in Leviticus prescribed 40-day periods. Even the strict community at Qumran required a 40-day trial for new members entering covenant life. The Hebrew word for 40, arba'im, appears over 140 times in Scripture. At least 42 of those are tied directly to moments when God shows up in a new way. So when the author of Luke and Acts sets the departure at day 40, he is writing in code that every Jewish listener would immediately recognize. This is not a random countdown. This is covenant renewal. This is the end of one era and the birth of something new. The wilderness is over. The mountain has been climbed. Now the mandate arrives. But here is where the story splits in a way most people never notice. The same author, the person scholars call Luke, tells the Ascension story twice. And the 2 versions do not match. Not because one is wrong, but because each carries a different weight. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, the scene is quiet, intimate. Jesus leads his friends out to Bethany. He lifts his hands. He blesses them. And while he is blessing them, he withdraws. The word Luke uses for blessing, eulogio, appears 14 times in his Gospel. This is a priestly act, a temple act. Jesus is not escaping. He is performing a final benediction, like a high priest sending the people out with God's peace resting on them. And the disciples respond not with grief but with joy. They return to Jerusalem, praising God in the temple. The ending feels like a benediction after worship. Gentle, complete. Then Acts chapter 1 retells the same event, and the energy shifts completely. Here, the departure is public, dramatic. A cloud descends and takes him from their sight. The Greek word epero, meaning to lift up, appears 27 times in Acts. And there is a rare word, analepsis, used only here in the entire New Testament. It means a taking up, an assumption into another realm. Angels appear. They speak. They point both upward and outward. This Jesus, who has been taken from you into heaven, will come back in the same way you have seen him go. But the implied message is clear. Until then, you have work to do. You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. 2 scrolls, 1 quiet blessing, 1 cosmic commission, and together they form something far richer than either alone. The priestly farewell assures the disciples that they leave with God's favor. The dramatic ascent tells them that favor now has a direction, outward, everywhere. The obvious reading is that this moment was an ending. The teacher left. The students were alone. And honestly, that is how most people experience it when they first read the text. A loss. A gap. A sky with nothing in it. But that reading misses something crucial. Think about what the angels actually said. Why are you standing here looking into the sky? That is not comfort. That is a redirect. The gaze must shift from vertical to horizontal, from heaven to the streets of Jerusalem, the ports of Caesarea, the roads leading to Rome. The ascension is not a door closing. It is a door swinging wide open. And what rushes through that door is not absence. It is a different kind of presence. The Gospel of John never describes a physical ascent. John takes a completely different approach. In chapters 16 and 17, Jesus tells his closest followers that his leaving is not just inevitable. It is necessary. Unless I go away, the advocate will not come to you. The Greek word is parakletos. It shows up 11 times in John's writings and nowhere else in the New Testament. It means something like the one called alongside, someone who stands with you in court, who speaks truth when you cannot find the words. John's point is radical. The physical presence of Jesus, as powerful as it was, had limits. He could only be in one place at a time. He could only speak to the people in front of him. But the Spirit, the Parakletos, would be everywhere. In every believer, in every city, in every century. The departure was not subtraction, it was multiplication. One presence became 10,000. A single flame became a fire that could not be contained. And that fire arrived on a very specific day, 50 days after Passover, the festival of Shavuot, Pentecost. Jerusalem was packed with pilgrims from across the known world. Parthians, Medes, Elamites, people from Mesopotamia and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, Libya, Rome, Crete, Arabia. 15 distinct language groups gathered in one city. 120 followers of Jesus were together in a room, and something broke open. The sound came first, like a violent wind filling the house. Then what looked like tongues of fire appeared and rested on each of them, and they began to speak. Not in their own language, in the languages of every pilgrim standing outside. The crowd was bewildered. Some thought they were drunk. Peter stood up and said, "No, it is 9 in the morning. This is what the prophet Joel promised. God's Spirit poured out on all people." By the end of that single day, 3,000 people were baptized. 120 became 3,120. Within decades, Clement of Rome would estimate 6,000 believers in the capital of the empire alone. A movement that began in a locked room in Jerusalem was spreading along every trade route in the Mediterranean. Now, the skeptic in us wants to push back here. Some scholars argue that the Pentecost languages were not miraculous translations at all. Stevens, in a 2022 study, mapped first-century diaspora trade routes and found that many of those pilgrims already spoke common dialects. They may have recognized familiar phrases rather than experiencing something supernatural. That is a fair point, but it also misses the larger narrative function. Whether the mechanism was miraculous or natural, the result was the same. A message that had been confined to Aramaic-speaking Galilee suddenly became accessible to the entire known world. The walls came down. The mission went global. And this is where the Ascension and Pentecost connect in a way that most people overlook. Without the departure, there is no arrival. Without the absence of the physical Jesus, there is no universal spirit. The rocket has to leave the launch pad for its payload to reach orbit. The baton has to leave one hand for the next runner to carry it forward. But what exactly were they carrying forward? This is the part that shaped everything that followed. From church architecture to social justice movements, to the way ordinary believers make decisions on a Tuesday afternoon. The early church writers took the Ascension and turned it into a throne room. Irenaeus, writing in the late 2nd century, quoted Psalm 110, verse 1:6 separate times. "Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool." For Irenaeus, the Ascension was not departure. It was enthronement. Jesus had not left the building. He had taken the highest seat in it. Ambrose of Milan preached 4 sermons linking the Ascension to Christ's role as cosmic judge. Tertullian referenced Christ enthroned 11 times in a single treatise. These writers were not interested in the physics of going up. They were interested in the politics of sitting down, at the right hand of ultimate power. And they built that theology into stone. The Dura Europos House Church, dating to around 230 CE, contains a fresco cycle depicting the Ascension. It was built on foundations from around 100 CE. Early Syrian churches included oculi, round openings in the roof, that functioned as what one scholar calls heavenly windows. Petrov, in a 2020 study, confirmed these were not ventilation shafts. They were theological statements. The ceiling was open because heaven was open. The boundary between the seen and the unseen had been torn. Every time a worshiper looked up through that opening, they were reenacting the gaze of the disciples on the hillside. But with a difference. They were not staring at absence. They were looking through a window into presence. This brings us to the tension that has defined Christian life for 2,000 years. Theologians call it inaugurated eschatology, but the idea is simple. The kingdom is here, and the kingdom is not yet here, both at the same time. The phrase kingdom of God appears 62 times in the New Testament. 36 of those references describe something present, something already at work. 26 describe something future, something still to come. That split is not a contradiction. It is a compass. The already side drives action now. Feed the hungry, heal the sick, speak truth, build community. The not yet side keeps hope alive when that action seems to fail. The world is not yet what it will be. But every act of compassion is a preview. Every moment of justice is a glimpse. You are living in the overlap. The green field is growing. The golden horizon is approaching. And the space between them is where faith lives. Some might argue this is just a comforting idea with no real-world teeth. But surveys show that 58% of Protestant clergy mention this tension in their preaching at least once a month. 78% of Catholic diocesan programs reference it in their curricula. It is not abstract theology. It is the engine driving food banks, hospital chaplaincies, refugee resettlement programs, and prison ministries across the globe. The already not yet is not a theory. It is a way of life. And here is the reframe that changes everything. The ascension was never about someone leaving. It was about everyone being sent. The departure of one became the commissioning of all. The visible became invisible, so the invisible could become universal. Every story has a next chapter. If this one gripped you, the journey keeps going. Subscribe, because the next story is already waiting, and it runs even deeper. Those disciples on the hillside, dust on their sandals, eyes fixed on empty sky, they finally looked down. They looked at each other, and they walked back into the city, not to wait, to begin,